Daf Yomi Tractate Sanhedrin, page 60, A, top of the page, with the words Machashefa lo sichayeh, which is a verse in Exodus which states, "You shall not allow a witch to live." Exodus 22:17. Uchesiv kol shechev im behema mois yumos kol sheyeshnem bechlal kol shechev im behema yeshnem bechlal machshefa lo sichayeh. So it's basically comparing two verses that are written next to each other. One is that you should not allow a witch to live, and the other verse states, "Whoever lies with an animal shall be put to death." Exodus 22:18, and the previous one was 22:17. It is derived from here that anyone who is included in the prohibition of whoever lies with an animal, including Gentiles, is included in the command, "You shall not allow a witch to live." Rabbi Elazar oimer af al hakilaim mino halimili amar Shmuel lemakro im chukoisai tishmoiru chukim shechakakti lecha keva behemtecha lo tarbiya kelaim sadcha lo tidra kelaim. The Braita teaches that Rabbi Elazar says that descendants of Noah were also commanded about the prohibition of diverse kinds. The Gemara asks, from where are these matters derived? Shmuel says they are derived from that which the verse states, "My statutes you shall keep. You shall not breed your animal with a diverse kind. You shall not sow your field with two kinds of seed." Leviticus 19:19. God is saying, keep the statutes that I have already instituted for you, meaning the mitzvot that were already given to the descendants of Noah, namely, you shall not breed your animal with a diverse kind, you shall not sow your field with two kinds of seed. I don't see how that was given to the previous, to the descendants of Noah. I don't remember seeing that, but anyway, okay, that's what they're saying here. Ma behemtecha beharba'a avsadach beharkavo. Ma behemtecha bechutz haaretz avsadach bechutz haaretz. The Gemara derives the details of this prohibition from the verse, just as the Noahide prohibition concerning your animal applies with regard to breeding animals of different species, and not with regard to plowing with animals of two different species working together, which is prohibited only for Jews. So too, the Noahide prohibition in your field applies with regard to grafting one's species onto another. Which is equivalent to breeding, but it is not prohibited for Gentiles to sow different seeds together. Furthermore, just as the Noahide prohibition against breeding your animal applies both in Eretz Yisrael from outside Eretz Yisrael, so too the Noahide prohibition against grafting diverse kinds in your field applies both in Eretz Yisrael and outside of Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara asks, if that is so, that the term "my statutes" is understood as referring to mitzvot that were already given to the descendants of Noach, then the verse, "You shall therefore keep my statutes and my ordinances," Leviticus 18:5, referring to the entire Torah, should also obligate the descendants of Noah, as it would be referring to statutes that I have already instituted for you. The Gemara answers, there the verse states, "You shall therefore keep my statutes," indicating only those statutes that I'm giving you now, whereas here, in the verse concerning diverse kinds, the wording is, "My statutes you shall keep," meaning statutes that obligate you from the outset, you shall keep in the future. Amar Yehoshua ben Kocha, after clarifying the halachot of the descendants of Noah, the Gemara returns to the halachot stated in the Mishnah with regard to one who blasphemes. It is stated in the Mishnah that Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha said that during a blasphemer's trial, the judges ask the witness to use an appellation for the name of God so that they do not utter a curse of God's name. Specifically, they would use a sentence, let Yossi smite Yossi, as the name Yossi has 4 letters in Hebrew, like the Tetragrammaton. Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov Eino Chayev Ad Shivarech Shem ben Arba Otiyot Lapuki ben Shtei Otiyot Dilo Arba Otiyot. What's the gematria of Arba Otiyot? 1096. Okay. Anyway, okay. Okay, Rav Acha bar Yaakov says the blasphemer is not liable unless he blesses, meaning curses the Tetragrammaton, the 4-letter name of God, which is to the exclusion of one who curses the 2-letter name of God, spelled Yud and then Hey, who is not liable. Pshita Yaki Yossi Yossi. I mean, even talking about this is already, I think, too much. But anyway, whatever. Pshita Yaki Tanan Mahuditim Milsabal Mahudanakat Kamash Malon. The Gemara asks, isn't that obvious? We learned in the Mishnah that the expression used in Kor, let Yossi Sma Yossi, which indicates a 4-letter name, the Gemara answers, lest you say that the Tana mentions this statement as a mere example, but does not intend that the witnesses use the 4-letter name in particular. Rav Acha bar Yaakov teaches that one is liable only for cursing the Tetragrammaton, Ika de Amri, Tetragrammaton. Ika de Amri, Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov Shmamina, Shem ben Arba Otiot Nami Shemhu. There are those who say that Rav Acha bar Yaakov says is false, conclude from the Mishnah that the Tetragrammaton is also a name for which one is liable, and he is liable not only for cursing the 42-letter name of God. Wow. Someone who knows the 42-letter name of God and comes to the level of cursing, that is like serious mental issues. The person must have some real mental problems. But, you know what I'm saying? Has that ever happened before? I don't know. But Pshita Yakiyos, he has to be really smart to begin with, right? To know that 42-letter name. Is it Ben Arba Otiot? Or is it Shem Ben Arba Otiot? It's Arba Otiot or it's Ben Arba Otiot? Shem Ben Arba Otiot. I don't know. Anyway, let's continue here. Nami Shem. Okay. Alright. Pshita Yaki Yossi ben Yossi Tanan. Ma'udatim Adika Shem Rabba. The Gemara asks, isn't it obvious? We learned in the Mishnah that the expression used in Kor, that Yossi Smat Yossi, the Gemara answers, lest you say that one is not liable unless there's a grand name that he curses, meaning the 42-letter name. And the Tana mentions, who even knows the 42-letter name? Yeah, that's what I was saying before. And the Tana mentions this statement as a mere example. Rav Acha bar Yaakov teaches that one is liable even for cursing the Tetragrammaton, and the name Yossi is mentioned specifically. Nigmar Hadid, when the Mishnah teaches when the judgment is over, and the judges need to hear the exact wording of the curse so they can sentence the defendant, the eldest of the witnesses repeats the curse, and the judges rise and make a tear in their clothing. Omdi minalan. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Ami, Amar Kra, ve'ehud ba elav, והוא יושב בעליית המקרה אשר לו לבדו, ויאמר אהוד, דבר אלוהים לי אליך, ויקם עם כסה, ויקם מעל הכיסא, והלא דבר עם קו וחוי, מה עגלון, מלך מואב שהוא גוי, ולא ידע אלא בכינוי עמד ישראל לשם המפרש, הלחס כמה וכמה. Okay. The Gemara asks, from where do we derive that the judges must stand? Rabbi Yitzchak bar Ami said, it is derived from that which the verse states about Eglon. And Ehud came to him, and he was sitting by himself alone in his cool upper chamber. And Ehud said, I have a message from God to you. And he arose of his seat, Judges 3:20. And are these matters not inferred of the Kal Chomer, which is an a fortiori inference? If Eglon, the king of Moab, who was a Gentile, and he knew the name of God only by an appellation, stood in honor, all the more so must a Jew stand if he hears the ineffable name. Korin minalan tichsiv vaya liach ben Chilkiyahu yeshebna Sofer v'Yoach ben Asaf hamaskir elchet Chilkiyahu kiroi bigodim vayagidu loi es divrei Rabshakeh. The Mishnah teaches that upon hearing the curse, the judges each make a tear in their garments. The Gemara asks, from where do we derive this? The Gemara answers, that it is derived from that which is written, then came Eliakim, son of Chilkiah, who was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah the son of Asaph, the recorder, and Hezekiah with torn garments, and they told him Rabshakeh's statement. 2 Kings 18:37. Apparently, since they had heard the blasphemous statement of Rabshakeh, they were obligated to make a tear in their garments. Velo machim min alad. It is furthermore stated that the judges do not ever fully stitch the tear together again. The Gemara asks, from where do we derive this? Amar Rabbi Abahu, Asya kriya de ksiv hacha. Kui bigodim. וכתיב התם ואלישע רואה והוא מצעק אבי אבי רכב ישראל ופרשיו ולא ראו עוד ויחזק בגדיו ויקראם לשניים קראים משמע שנאמר ויקראם לשניים אין יודע שהם קראים ומה תלמוד לומר קראים מלמד שהן קרואים לעולם. Rabbi Abahu says it is derived by means of a verbal analogy between tearing, stated in this regard, and the tearing stated with regard to Elijah's ascendance to heaven. It is written here with regard to those who heard Rabshakeh's blasphemy, with torn garments, and it is written there, and Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariots of Israel, and its horsemen. And he saw him no more. And he grabbed hold of his clothes and tore them into pieces. 2 Kings 2:12. From the meaning of that which is stated, and tore them in two, do I not know that they are in pieces? And why must the verse state pieces? This teaches that they remain torn forever. They may never fully be stitched back together, but only partially so. Tanu Rabbanan, Echad HaShomea ve'Echad Shomea. מפי השומע חייב לקרוע, והעדים אין חייבים לקרוע, שכבר קראו בשעה ששמעו. The sages taught in a braise, both one who hears the curse himself and one who hears it from the one who heard it are obligated to make a tear in their garments, But the witnesses are not obligated to make a tear when they testify, as they already made a tear when they heard it from the blasphemer himself. My hobby. Haka Shami Hashta. Lasol Kedai Tichtiv Vayehi Keshamwa Hamelech Hizkiyahu Et Divrei Rab Shakeh Vayikra Et Bigadav Hamelech Hizkiyahu Kra Vehem Lo Kraru. Okay, the Gemara asks, and if they made a tear when they heard the curse, what of it? Aren't they also hearing the curse now? They should tear it every time, right? Why just the first time? It should be every time. The Gemara answers, it should not enter your mind that they are obligated to make a tear a second time, as it is written, and it came to pass, when Hezekiah heard the statement of Rabshakeh, that he tore his clothes. 2 Kings 19 verse 1. It can be inferred that King Hezekiah tore his clothes, but those who reported the blasphemy did not tear their clothes a second time. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Let's see how we're doing on time. Speaking of time. Okay, 16 minutes. Alright, let's continue. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Shemeasko, and Pia Goi. Ein Achav Lekwa. Even Tomer Rab Shakeh, Yisrael Mur. Haya. Rav Yehuda says, that Shmuel says, when we hear a mention of God's name in a blasphemous manner from a Gentile, is not obligated to make a tear in his garments. And if you object and say that those who heard the blasphemy of Rab Shakeh made a tear, even though he was a Gentile, that is not correct, as Rab Shakeh was an apostate Jew. Okay? Rav Yehuda Shmuel, Ein korin ela al shem hamiyuchad bilvad lepoke kinoi delah. Rav Yehuda says, Shmuel says, one who makes a tear, only if you're hearing a curse of the ineffable name of God, to the exclusion of hearing a curse of an appellation of the name of God, which is for which one does not make a tear. The Gemara notes, and Shmuel disagrees with Rav Chia with regards to two matters. Rav Chia says, one who hears mention of God's name in blasphemous context nowadays is not obligated to make a tear, as if you do not say so, the entire garment will be full of tears. The Gemara clarifies, from whom does one hear these mentions of God's name, about which Rabbi Chia says that one's entire garment will be full of tears. If we say that he hears it from a Jew, are Jews irreverent to such an extent that they demean the name of God? Rather, it is obvious that Rabbi Chia is referring to hearing from a Gentile. And if you say that the reference is to cursing the ineffable name, have the Gentiles learned it? They have no knowledge of this name. Rather, it is not referring to cursing by an appellation of God's name. And conclude from it that it is specifically nowadays that, according to Rav Chia, one is not obligated to make a tear in his garment when hearing the curse of a Gentile, and when hearing the curse of God that is referred to God with an appellation. But initially, when the fundamental halacha was practiced, one was obligated to make a tear in these cases, contrary to the opinion of Shmuel. The Gemara affirms, indeed, conclude from it that this is so. Hashem Yomer Afani Kamohu Amar Shlosh Mamina Avani Kamohu Kasha Bedin Mamanas Ubedin Nefashis Malahu De Avud Rabbanan Yehacha Kevin De Laefsha Komi De Rabbanan Ad Yoiraiso. The Mishnah teaches that after the eldest witness states the exact wording of the curse, the second witness does not repeat it, but he says, I too heard as he did. Reish Lakish says, conclude from it that saying, I too heard as he did, is valid testimony by Torah law, both in cases of monetary law and in cases of capital law, and the requirement that every witness must relate his testimony separately is a higher standard that the sages instituted. And here, since it is not possible to fulfill this requirement, as it is not appropriate for a blasphemous statement to be repeated several times. The sages established the matter according to Torah law, and did not require that every witness repeat the curse. And if it enters your mind that saying, I too heard as he did, is not valid testimony of Torah law, here in the case of blasphemy, we would execute the man without full testimony, because it is not possible to allow the repetition of blasphemy. Clearly, such a testimony is valid by Torah law. To make a shloshim l'shnayim. The Mishnah teaches that, and the third witness says, I too heard as he did. The Gemara comments, the unattributed Tana of the Mishnah holds in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, who compares 3 witnesses to 2. Rabbi Akiva maintains that just as in a case where there are 2 witnesses, disqualification of one disqualifies all the testimony. So too, even if there are 3 witnesses and one of the 3 is disqualified, all of the testimony is disqualified. Similarly, here too he holds that if there are 3 witnesses, each of them must testify concerning the curse.